Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of What It's Nerd. Today we were meant to be discussing just Deadpool and Wolverine, but there's been a lot of announcements since then, especially regarding Marvel, and we're going to discuss those as well. Now I totally forgot San Diego Comic-Con was this weekend, and with that obviously came a lot of announcements for Marvel / updates on other projects. The primary one, and the one I think we should discuss first, is that Robert Downey Jr. is back in the MCU come 2026 as none other than Doctor Doom. And whilst a lot of people are excited about that, there's an equal amount of people who are just concerned for a number of different reasons. I'm one of them, I will admit. This feels like a knee-jerk to the whole debacle with Jonathan Majors, and as well as the declining popularity of the MCU in general since Endgame. And I think that they have basically knee-jerked and gotten Robert Downey Jr. back, as well as the Russo brothers for the next two Avengers movies. That, of course, being that Kang Dynasty is now Doomsday, and, of course, we'll focus on Doctor Doom rather than the Kang setup that we've had for quite some time thus far. So the MCU is only going to get more messy, it seems. And whilst I kind of wish that was from a perspective of like, oh, we're getting into really complex storylines, it doesn't seem to be the case here. It seems we're rehashing with the intent of making something that's going to gross highly. Which I understand. Disney is a business. I get that from that standpoint. This is the right move. But and you know what? Funnily enough, I think Robert Downey Jr. could pull off a decent Doctor Doom as regards the pomp and circumstance. But I don't think from a background perspective he's necessarily the right choice. There's other actors who potentially could have been better. As regards keeping the MCU kind of in, like, not messed too much with its continuity. I know the MCU does this a lot, but I didn't like it when they did it. I didn't like it when they did with Mariah Dillard. Mariah Dillard, is that her name? I think Mariah from Luke Cage, who ended up being in Civil War as well. I didn't really like it when they did it with Gemma Chan as Minerva and Cersei. I prefer they keep away from that stuff where necessary. Even recasts have had to come kind of around to, like with Harrison Ford becoming General Ross for the next Captain America movie. Like those things, like you're kind of like, but you understand because William Hurt sadly passed away. But I just feel like Doctor Doom, could we have went with someone else? Probably yes. And the thing is as well, if Doom is only around for these two movies, then you've went through three of the biggest Marvel villains in two of the big sagas, so to speak, with Kang, Doom and Thanos last time round. So that's a concerning one as well, especially because Galactus, the other big bad, is going to be in the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out next year, which, again, that's another one that got a lot of updates, and that looks pretty good. Set in the 60s, the universe from what we're gathering as well. So it's going to be a very interesting ride with that. That's coming out pretty much a year to date. So next year you're going to be looking at Captain America, then Fantastic Four, and finishing with Blade later in the year, which we didn't really get many updates on, apart from the fact that it is coming still. Then Doomsday in 2026, and in 2027, Secret Wars. Don't get me wrong, I'm interested. I'm still interested in the MCU, as I always am, and I think the Tony Stark thing could be played off, like the Tony Stark as Doctor Doom thing, if that's the way they're doing it, could be played off in an interesting way. I also think if it's actually... I think if it's actually just a variant, I think that's better. I think because then you can introduce a real Doom later on, but having a kind of Mandarin effect didn't really go down the first time, so I don't know if we're going to enjoy it the second time so much. Unless, here's another interesting point, what if it's something that Doom is orchestrating, right? What if the real Doom is using a face that the heroes know to kind of play with them, right? To kind of like get under their skin, right? This is your hero, well, look what he's doing now, type thing, right? So that's going to be really interesting. I hope they really do like go into it of like that guy looks like Tony. Why does he look like Tony? I think that would be an interesting angle. Something that they actually did in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with this kind of Bill Coulson alike, which is very interesting in its own way. Weird, but interesting. So, yeah, I think there's reasons I don't like it. There's reasons I think it could work. One of the other reasons I think it doesn't work is that it doesn't really fit with Doom's backstory to, like, if you're doing the Tony Stark thing, fair enough. But if you're doing it as actual Doom, Doom is a Romani character. He has certain experiences that I think. Don't get me wrong, any actor can act anything, right? A straight actor can act as a gay character, a gay actor can do a straight character. All those things can come into play, right? Race, of course, is very different because, but background, yeah, you can do it, right? You can say that Doom still had these experiences that he had in his childhood, regards being ostracized, regards his mother as seen as being demonized essentially by the community around them. Yeah, you can do that, but in this context, it feels very much necessary to have that kind of Romani route, because that is the kind of the root. It's like taking Magneto out of the like the Jewish out of Magneto, right? It's like taking away his being part of the, like, in the Holocaust, right? Like that would just kind of not really work, you know. So like, people have kind of said if Magneto comes back, if Magneto's in the MCU, that needs to happen. Then same has to happen with Doom, in my opinion. But clearly they're not going that direction, and I'm not so close-minded as to not accept that this might be something totally different, that this might be like some kind of fake out in some way, because it feels very weird for them to introduce Doom on stage at Hall H 2 years before it's even kind of necessary to, in a way. I feel like what they could have really done is like played into the Kang thing and kept it as Kang Dynasty and not really told us anything until the trailer dropped, and then you could show something off about it being like a totally different name. I feel like that would have been like a really big, like, whoa, shock moment. I mean, this was a shock moment too, but I feel like that could be even more shocking if you left it basically until the trailer came out, and then you could really turn all the negative publicity into like good publicity and show us kind of what you're doing at the same time, rather than leaving us for, if you did something at the end of the Fantastic Four movie that suggested it, and then you drop the trailer like a few weeks later, I think that personally would have been a better strategy, in my opinion. Now, with all that said, there was updates for other movies. We know that Giancarlo Esposito is now playing Sidewinder, the King of the Serpent Society, in Captain America. We know, of course, from last time when we discussed this, that Harrison Ford is playing Red Hulk. Apparently, that was shown very much at San Diego Comic-Con, so it's not someone else being Red Hulk, it is Harrison Ford. And the leader, of course, is an important part of this movie as well. Thunderbolts, a lot of people worried that Ghost wasn't going to be in this movie anymore. Ghost is in the movie. Luckily, the actor, I forget her name off the top of my head, was at San Diego Comic-Con, as well as they kind of discussed that the story would be that they're all being set up on the same quest and they kind of come together, even though they're after the same target, so to speak. So I think that's going to be a very interesting movie in its own right. I think, a lot of people had doubts about Thunderbolts. I don't necessarily. I think there's a lot of good actors in there. I think the story just needs to kind of come into line with that, right? And speaking of that, we will discuss, of course, Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine. And my kind of, basically, long story short, that's my issue with Deadpool and Wolverine. Very little story, even though the rest is pretty good. The humor. Do you know, I'm trying to say it now, actually. In fact, we're here. Deadpool and Wolverine, the story is very thin. I think the villains had no real premise, no real motivations. They just were kind of being bad for the sake of, or like a plot device to move on the story. I think this is a general consensus for this movie as well, by the way. But the humor was really spot on. I think the actors did really well with what they had, even the villains. I think the villains still had a very good portrayal of those characters as those characters were written. Deadpool was great. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, obviously Ryan Reynolds were great. There was a lot of good gags. I enjoyed the cameos. The cameos actually in this movie felt a lot stronger than other. Like, yes, they did quite a few. They felt sort of egregious in places, but I think they actually added to the story in a way. They kind of added a subplot that was quite interesting. So yeah, my issue is with Deadpool and Wolverine is that the movie could have been made so much better by simply playing out the plot just slightly differently. If you had instantly rolled the Deadpool universe into the main universe and just said that only Deadpool survived it, and then he somehow fights his way into the TVA, says to them, "Look, I'm not leaving without you putting these people in the sacred timeline," and then they say no, and he has to go all crazy on their ass to get his friends back, and by chance Logan alongside, and then you can play the same movie out, right? But the fact that the TVA are hunting him throughout the movie rather than him kind of just getting away from them, and then that's it for the TVA and the story, and then you can have Emma Corrin's Cassandra Nova come in as kind of like, "You're disrupting my place here, my rule of the void by doing what you're doing, by taking these people away from me. You're going to basically crumple the void, so to speak, or like undermine my power because these people are kind of subject to her," or something like that. And then you've got the same movie, the same essential premise, the same essential character developments, but suddenly you have a movie that's a lot less convoluted, a lot less about two universes. Deadpool ends up back in his own universe at the end of the movie, and it's like, what? Hello? And I understand there's things still to come, there's things still happening, the TVA still links this all, but it was a bit too much for me, and I think definitely much too much for mainstream audiences. I think if you kind of just went straight away, if you were at Deadpool's birthday party and you went, "Look," and the universe just literally goes, and he ends up in that apartment alone. You could play it very much like the Snap, with, like, for example, when Yelena comes out, is in the bathroom in that one episode of Hawkeye, and you see her return, and she's in the bathroom, and like the house is totally changed and everything. You could easily do it something like that, right? You could have, I think Deadpool's in New York in this. I'm not sure. You could have this New York apartment that he ends up in suddenly, and it's someone else's, and he's like, "What the fuck's going on here?" And then you find out that all these people are gone because he's trying to look for them, and he knows that they're gone, and he knows where he needs to go because of his fourth wall breaking ability. He goes to the TVA, and then you can go from there. I just personally think that would have been a better way of doing it, and I think it would have really solved the plot problem that the movie had, which was just convolutedness left and right. Going back to San Diego Comic Con, we did also get some updates about. Oh gosh, I've forgotten it now. Oh no. We did also get some updates about what was the movie. I'm forgetting. I said Thunderbolts. We did Captain America. We did Doomsday, and no, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Did I say it all? Oh gosh, guys, I'm making up things now. Then again, not much different to many other Marvel creators. I'm kidding. I'm going to check quick because I think I'm missing something, but I don't know. So let's have a look. Am I missing something? This is what happens when you don't brush up on all your stuff ahead of time. No, we talked about Doctor Doom, we talked about Fantastic Four, we talked about the Avengers movies, we talked about Thunderbolts. I think that's it. I'm making stuff up now. I've made stuff up. No, yeah. So guys, that is pretty much it for this week as regards the podcast. I think there's a lot to kind of digest. So as regards the Robert Downey Jr. decision and Deadpool and Wolverine, there's a lot of issues there as well. I think the MCU is in a tender spot, and it could go either way. I personally think at the moment. I'm very interested to see how that unfolds. I think you could potentially see the MCU either ending. I don't think so, but potentially, or rebooting in some way after Secret Wars at this point, with kind of Iron Man being the capstone for now, as Doctor Doom. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I wouldn't judge anything too soon, where we've literally only got announcements so far, and the footage that was shown at Comic-Con was only parts and pieces of parts and nothing for the Avengers movies. So we'll see. But yeah, that is it for this time around, guys. Next week, I think we'll be looking at Batman the Caped Crusader, which releases on August 1st on Prime Video. I've never watched a Batman animated show prior to this, so I'll be really interested to try my first one with a brand new go around. So let's keep an eye out for that. Until then, guys, thank you so much as always. I'll see you later.